I was on Facebook yesterday, and I don't normally scroll because I don't like consuming too much content because I know everyone has so much to say, and I just don't have the time or the space for that in my brain. But anyway, I was scrolling through Facebook, and there's this girl that I have never actually met in person, but I connected with over Facebook, and she's also a copywriter. And you know how people go into like different groups on Facebook and they respond to comments, and sometimes they do that as like outreach to potential clients, or just trying to connect with people in the industry, which I think is a pretty popular and not a bad way of like making connections, because it's so natural. Like someone will post something and then you're just being helpful in the comments, and then, a natural conversation kind of starts up. So this girl, she comments a lot inside of like forums where people are looking for online work and stuff like that. And she talks about her work as a copywriter, and she's been doing it for, I think she said 15 years now or something like that, which is obviously a lot of experience. And recently she's been commenting a lot saying, hey, I've been doing this, like I really recommend it. By the way, I'm gonna be releasing my own course soon. So if you wanna like give that a go, you can just reach out to me, and I'm also really happy to help you out. And I've seen so much hate. Like everyone is hating on her so bad, saying stuff like, why are you trying to encourage people to get into copywriting? Copywriting is going to be dead in like, months because of AI, and there's no more work there. And, the only people that have clients are people that are already really well established. And then if you're new or if you're not that great, you're not going to have clients. So stop like trying to sell your course. You're probably trying to sell a course because you're not making any money from your work. And me reading those comments, I was like, people are so mean. Sometimes I don't understand that. Like I've been really lucky with this channel because I didn't receive a lot of hate. I received one comment under a video where, that video did get like 11K views or something. So it was much bigger than the rest of my videos. And the girl was like, oh, you're not saying anything new. It's just blah, blah, blah. And I was like, fair play. Like, if that's what you think, like you're entitled to an opinion. Why don't you make your own video if you know better? Like, I'm just trying to help people. But people can be so hateful. But what I've noticed in a lot of comments online, on Reddit, on Facebook, on Instagram, there was me saying I don't scroll social media, but sometimes I do. And when I do, this is the stuff that I see, or especially if I'm doing research, or it's just stuff that I'm interested in. So anyway, I see that a lot of people have this kind of idea that copywriting is dead because of AI. There's a lot of fear mongering around AI, and I think that it's because it is changing the way copywriters are working. Like I started way before AI was a thing. And things are changing so fast anyway, like in any industry, but especially like in technology and marketing, like things change so fast. Like you're going to learn how to do one thing, and then you literally finish doing the course. And then it's like, oh, don't worry about that because now we're doing something else. And you just have to kind of roll with it and go with it. So I think people are thinking that, okay, AI is killing copywriting because, well, it can write super fast. You as a human being, even if your typing speed is like 1 million words per minute, like you still need to think and process things, and then you write them out, and then, you have to change them because we rarely get it right the first time. And then AI is just like, immediately, bam, you get the whole thing written in seconds. Like seconds, it blows my mind. But that's, that if I thought that copywriting was just writing, and then I saw that AI can do that in seconds, it'd be like, well, why would anyone hire a copywriter to do it if they could just for free go online and get it in seconds? Like, what's the point of going through the whole process of hiring someone, paying somebody just to get the same thing they would be able to get like that, Then also another thing is it's so fast at researching and like putting strategies together. Like researching normally takes hours, because you're trying to learn all these things and then you have to put the information together, and it just takes time and it takes brain power, and it's actually very tiring as well. I remember my godmother was telling me, just, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks I went to visit her, because since I moved to Poland, like I see my family a lot more often than I used to when I was like in Mexico or something. So we often sit on her sofa and we have these really long chats about everything. And I really love that. But anyway, she was telling me how when she was doing her degree, and she was already an adult then and she had her kids and stuff, but she decided that she wanted to do a degree. And I think she did it with my mom and their other sister. But anyway, she was saying that like when she was completing her major like piece, what she had to do was like she had to take out a gazillion books out of the library. And then, she was printing stuff off of the internet because they were already using the internet for like research, but it wasn't like today where you type it into Chat GPT and then you get different like titles of papers and whatever. Like she was like, I used to have like 100 tabs open and I would be like clicking between them, getting so confused and like printing stuff, noting stuff and running between the table and the living room and the dining room, because that's where like my stuff was everywhere. And she was doing it in the middle of the night because she had kids, so she had to take care of them during the day. So nighttime was the only time where she was able to do that. When I think about that, I was like, it's so crazy that you can go to Chat GPT, ask any question, like even the most complex question that needs scientific research, that needs to be referenced by papers, and it can literally give you the answer in like a minute. It blows my mind. So obviously that's impressive because in copywriting, we do a lot of research. So when you think about the fact that, a copywriter, like a human copywriter, needs to do a lot of research and take some time, again, it's time consuming, and obviously that's going to cost the business money. But then you can just go to Chat GPT and get the answers. The same with like strategy, a lot of copywriting involves strategic thinking. Like you will, unless you have like an account manager or a strategic person within the business that just briefs you on the copy. But if not, then you're the one that's kind of taking care of that in a lot of the, scenarios. And then again, you can ask Chat GPT and it has all the knowledge available. And he's just going to give you a great answer most of the time, or at least a starting point. So again, if I don't know anything about copywriting, I'm going to think, again, why would someone hire me to do that if they can just go, like I can go to Chat GPT and get them the answer in 5 seconds so they can do it themselves? Why pay the middleman? Makes sense, right? And especially because when you compare it to like when I started back in the good old days, I had none of that. Like I didn't have Chat GPT. I just had the internet, which was already better than having to like just learn from books. Although a lot of the time I would also purchase books because they were just considered a more reliable source than like a blog post or something, Nowadays, I think that things have changed, like in terms of like podcasts, for example. You can get someone who has written a book and they will be interviewed by like 10 different podcasts. And if you watch those 10 different podcasts, you basically get the whole message of the book. So you can even save yourself money if you don't have it. Although I do think that, we should be supporting these authors anyway, instead of just like listening to a podcast and being like, okay, I got that for free. Because you would want people to support you if you spent your life researching something and, trying to share it with the world. But anyway, like back in the days when I started, if a client came to me, for example, they have written a book or they have just created a course on something that, they care about and they want to get it to the right audience, I would basically interview them. So it's like I would have my own podcast episode with them where I would need to learn everything about them, their product, their audience. And, then I would have to turn that into the copy. So I would have the interview with the client. Then I would go away and spend days. Like, I'm not lying to you. I would spend days researching. Like, I would read books or watch interviews. I would go into Reddit or like different social media platforms to try and look for people who would be interested in that product, and I would learn about them. I would literally, I would go through the target audience's private Facebook profiles or Instagram profiles just to see what do they do normally, who do they tend to be, like, are they single moms, are they young men, or like, who are they, where do they mostly live, what kind of language do they use, what kind of hobbies do they have, because they're like, you could just go off of by, what you think or what your gut feeling is, and that's okay a lot of the time. But if you really want those kind of nuggets, like the golden nuggets that connect and make this product stand out and make the copy stand out to the reader, then that kind of deep research really helps, because you're going to come across things that are just going to be like chef's kiss, So I would spend days doing research like that. And it was fun, but sometimes it was also tiring, You get to a point where you're like, your brain is just full of information, like it's saturated with the information, and you feel like you're not thinking or doing anything else other than that. But that was kind of the point. Like, I wanted to get so saturated with it that I felt like I was the target audience, and I was also saturated with the product information, and I was able to then produce the copy, because it's almost like if you are a sponge and you soak up all this information, then when you finally squeeze the sponge, like all this stuff has to come out. So if you soaked it up with water, which in this case scenario, like let's just use it as a metaphor for that particular information, then that's what you're gonna get. If you soak it up with a mix of water and Coke, which Coke could be like irrelevant stuff, then that's what you're gonna get. Like, it's just more concentrated and beautiful when you like focus all your energy on that topic. So it used to take hours to learn everything, to do the research. And then obviously when it came to actually writing the copy, you would have to like sit down and think about it, like, okay, I'm going to start with this, and then I'm going to transition to this, and then I'm going to include this, and that. And this is where you would, use your copywriting formulas or like tactics, like talking about the pricing or talking about the benefits or talking about the fears and, all that stuff that you learn when you're first learning copywriting. And I would like bullet point everything that I wanted to include in the sales page. Then I would sit down and actually write out a section of the sales page according to every bullet point that I wrote. And then based off of that, I would have to try and like put it together into one long document and one long text that actually flows and is engaging, and it keeps it keeps the momentum of the reader and it keeps them engaged, but then also gets them to actually take action. And then obviously you end up with this long document that you need to edit. You need to edit because maybe it's too long. It needs to be shorter. You need to take out anything that doesn't belong in there. You need to make sure that, grammatically it's correct, but at the same time, it doesn't read like an essay, but it reads more like something that you would, like the way you would speak, as we say. Then you would need to make sure that it's simple language. So maybe you'd use something like the Hemingway app. And there was just so much that actually went into creating the final masterpiece. And then, you would go back and rethink the headlines and the CTAs and the whole structure. Sometimes you would do last minute changes. And then you would go and like present it to the client, and then they would implement it into the landing page. And then, that was the whole process. So it wasn't just like, bam, I type it into Chat GPT and I get an answer immediately. Excuse me. So I see like the comparison between the two. It just seems like, okay, why bother with all this work and all this time when you can literally, like, even now, you don't have to type out the things to AI. You can talk to it. Like, you can just use the dictation feature, and then that's what I tend to do to save time. So I'm not even like having to write out my sentences and whatever. I just tap the microphone button and I'm like, hey, you know what? This is what I'm writing, and these are the ideas that I have. Can you just, note them down for me and, come up with, I don't know, 30 initial ideas for me. And then I'll look through that and just kind of go off of that. So it means that I don't even have to be typing. I can just talk to it, which literally makes it kind of seem like a personal assistant, It's as if I have a person next to me that I can just talk to, and I'm focusing my energy on like getting ideas out and, directing them, but they're doing the labor for me, if that makes sense. So that's kind of the essence of it. But when you look at the relationship or the way that you would use AI, it still needs to be directed. It's not that it just by itself knows what to do and how to do it. Like, it still needs someone to talk to it and tell it what to do. But it can be a great assistant, but it can't do the work by itself. It's not like, I don't know, it's not there yet. And maybe at some point it will be, I don't know. But as of now, it still needs someone behind the keyboard or behind the microphone to talk to it and direct its actions. So you have to like tell it what's going on and why you're doing what you're doing and who we're talking to and what's the main point of it. And you have to give it ideas and like direct the ideas, because otherwise you're just going to get a very messy response. Like if you just do the bare minimum with AI, like you just say, hey, I'm writing a sales page for a hairbrush, let's say, you're not going to get the best copy out of it. That's just the way it is. But if you give it enough information, then it's going to give you something of a better quality, maybe a good starting point. But you still need to direct the ideas and develop the ideas. That's what I think anyway. Like if a company has a big budget where they can just, I don't know, throw a lot of money at their advertising and testing and stuff, then they don't really have to like quality check the ideas. They can just be like, okay, like, let's just go with this. And they'll test like 30 different ideas and go with the one that's doing the best. And then, they'll go back to, my voice feels really like, anyway. So yeah, you have to teach AI about the product. Like what's special about my product? Why is that even special? Because it doesn't have all these human experiences that we have, and it's not that human. So you have to kind of help it get into the shoes of that human and help them understand why that product is even important, or what are the struggles these people experience and how we're solving it with our product. And that's going to give it a more I'm stuck for words. It's going to give them more information so they can give you a higher quality output. And then, I was going to say something, but when things just kind of leave your brain and then you don't know what to say. Luckily, I have my notes. So I see like situations when a business owner might choose AI. Like I said, if they have a big budget or if they have a low budget and they just need to do it by themselves, then obviously they might choose to do that and not hire someone because, why pay if I can just do it myself? But it still takes a copywriter to recognize, what is good, what is likely to work. Does it make sense? Is it sticking to the guidelines or what we know works, or is it just, spitting out things that are not likely to work? And then essentially that's not good for the business because it's just going to waste their budget. Like even if you do have $1 million budget for ads, you still don't want to waste half of it on running with things that are not going to work, or that are not going to work, but you don't know because you're just relying on AI to know, but AI doesn't have the experience, or it hasn't, been as involved in the community, in the world of marketing and whatever, to understand like, okay, this has been tried many, many times and it just doesn't work. So there's no point doing that. But the way I look at it, like when you take all of that into account, so you understand how AI works, and then you understand copywriting, and then you understand the perspective of a business owner, you realize that AI is actually great news for copywriters, especially new copywriters. So hear me out. It's like having a personal assistant. When I was starting, I was by myself. I was learning everything by myself. I was the one, talking to clients. I was the one doing the research, writing the copy, editing the copy. Like everything was just on my shoulders. And this just means that one, you're going to spend more of your time doing that, whatever you have to do to get the job done. And two, you're more prone to mistakes like typos or not seeing certain things, or, you get stuck in thinking in your own kind of way, and it's hard to put yourself outside of the box. That's why sometimes you'll hear a lot of copywriters recommend like, oh, write your copy and then step away from it for like 3 or 4 days and then go back to it. Because it actually helps you like leave that box that you've kind of put yourself into. And then when you come back, you're looking at it with fresh eyes. So having this kind of personal assistant helps you in those situations when you get stuck, when you have a writing block, but also when you need someone to review, did I make any typos in here? Is there a better way of saying this? Like, I have this idea, but I'm struggling to find the words to communicate it. You help me. And then, it's like you have someone to bounce your ideas off of, to take notes for you, to keep track of information for you, because we are human beings and we forget a lot of things. Like, I would do so much research, but I would only retain 50% of what I learned. And that's on a good day. And then it also speeds up your work, right? So if you have this personal assistant that is able to communicate your ideas faster, right? So you're not the one that's thinking of all the different words you can use and writing them out and checking them in a dictionary and seeing if it's actually used in, I don't know, let's say in America, because if I was raised in the UK, which means that I spoke a certain way, like I spoke English a certain way. And then in the US, they speak it different, like certain words are just not used and, or they're used in different contexts. So I didn't know that because I was in the US once for a weekend and I wasn't a big fan. So, having that and not having to check every single thing by yourself speeds up your work. And if you are faster at doing your work, that means you're more competitive, because either you can offer a faster turnaround, which every client loves, or you can offer lower rates, or a combination of the two. So all of a sudden you have an advantage, you have an edge, because, if someone says, okay, to do your welcome sequence, like the emails for your welcome sequence, I'm going to need a month because I need to do the research, this and that. And you say to them, oh, I can do it in a week, let's say. Well, all of a sudden you're much more attractive as a copywriter. And then also, AI fills your knowledge gaps. So again, like I said, for example, the UK, US English thing. If you're just not sure, you don't have to do the research manually. You can ask hey, I want to use this word. Is this something that people would say in the US or not really? And then AI is able to just say it straight to you oh, they would use it in this context or that context, but not really. And, whatever. And it just gives you the information faster. But also, in just any kind of topic, sometimes you can ask it basic things okay, what's the weather like in Arizona in January? And it can give you the temperatures, what the air feels like and everything. So if you want to use that in your storytelling, you don't have to ask people or go off of information online, which could be difficult to find something so specific. But AI is able to do the research for you very quickly. Another great thing about it is if English is not your first language, and especially if you didn't grow up bilingual and it's not a language that you use all the time naturally, maybe let's say you know it, but you live outside of an English speaking country and the only time you speak English is either when you're interacting with foreigners in your country or when you're traveling, or other people who have also learned it at school or whatever. So you don't actually have access to natural English speakers. Then when you're writing, it kind of gets difficult sometimes to communicate ideas, or you think that you're doing it correctly, but to an English speaker, it just sounds a little bit odd. You know, they'll read it and they'll be like the sentence, even though they won't pick up on it consciously, subconsciously, they're like, this was awkward. Like the sentence felt a bit clunky. So having Chat GPT to go over your work, and you can specifically say to it, like, listen, I'm not like an English speaker. I need you to go through my work and make sure that it sounds, like it's spoken by somebody who is a natural English speaker, or for their first language is English. I don't know why I'm saying a natural English speaker. Like, I don't know if that's even the proper way to say it, but you know what I mean. So it takes away that pressure of having to do it perfectly. And then also it's something that you can use to actually reassure your client, because they might have this objection with it. They'll be like, hold on a minute, but you're from Mexico, or you're from Poland, or you're from India. And I can see, like, I'm talking to you and I can see that your English isn't perfect. So I don't think this is going to work. But you can be like, sir, I might not have like the perfect English. I'm not like a native English speaker, but I have good ideas and I have Chat GPT to fill in the gap when it comes to the language. So don't worry about that. And then, yeah, it's great. Chat GPT is also great at providing you context and like research that you would normally, it can't do some of the things. Like, it's not going to be able to do that deep research of like looking at people's profiles and being really creepy. But it can give you a lot of information that would help you understand issues. Like, you can be like, how many people experience problems with their fee in the US? If, like, I don't know, I'm just talking off the top of my head. And then you can ask it, like, what do those feel like? Or what are the most common ones? What are the symptoms? What is a person likely to feel? When are they going to feel like this during the day? Like, is it when they wake up or before they go to bed? Like, it just helps you get so much context for your copy. And it's so fast. Like, it's so much faster than doing it manually. Another thing is that you can literally feed examples to Chat GPT. So you can go through the internet, you can go through examples of sales pages or Facebook ads or stuff that that works, or stuff that you like. And then you can ask it to keep that information, remember it, and use it every time it's writing something for you. And you have to point it, like, what is it about that specific piece of copy that you want it to remember? Like, is it the structure? Is it the words that they're using? Is it the, the storytelling and the way they paint images? Like, you have to be very thoughtful with the prompts. But if you do that, it's just going to save you so much work, and it's going to help you stick to the things that you really want to stick to. But sometimes as human beings, we miss things, or we forget to include things or whatever. But ChatGPT will kind of, it's still going to forget. Like, I'm not going to lie to you. There's been times where super simple things, like I'm talking, like even super easy calculations, and it doesn't get it right. And I'm like, aren't you supposed to be like this incredibly intelligent thing, but you make like easy subtraction mistakes? Like, it doesn't make sense. So you have to like really look at the responses that you get and don't just blindly follow it, because that is gonna lose you quickly. But yeah, you can train it to give you customized answers, so they won't be the generic kind of Chat GPT copywriting responses that everyone can recognize by now, with the long dashes and questions. Like, Chat GPT loves doing like these little questions, like, don't you just feel like ... question mark. Means fill it in with whatever you're talking about. And I think that if you really want to be good at copywriting, you have to absolutely get away from those like little things and take ChatGPT's responses and develop them and make them better, not like just take what they're saying. And look for places and opportunities where you can slot in unique ideas and take the copy in a unique direction instead of just being like, okay, this is fine. Because that's one of the places where ChatGPT can trip you up. If you learn to just rely on it like 100%, you're gonna notice that you're not as aware and as sharp when it comes to writing copy or like spotting things and whatever, because you're just going to get into this mold. You're going to get your brain used to this thing of like, okay, I just tell it whatever, it comes back with whatever and I accept it. I don't even think about it and I don't take the time to develop the ideas. It shouldn't work like that. Also, ChatGPT shouldn't be a replacement for studying copywriting and knowing copywriting, because like I said before, it still takes a copywriter to recognize good copy. Like that's just the basis of it. Like you have to know the craft in order to be able to, like, if you believe that ChatGPT is like your assistant, and if you had an actual assistant that was a person and they were just kind of new to the whole thing and you were asking them to help and you gave them work and they wrote some copy for you, you have to understand whether that's good or not in order to be able to either accept it or not accept it, to give them feedback. You wouldn't just go off of by everything they say and take it as the holy grail because they're your assistant. They're not your, above you. Like even if someone is above you, you still should be able to critically think about what they're saying and about their work. Don't be like a blind follower or whatever. But yeah, especially if it's someone junior, you want to be able to be that senior person to them with more experience and stuff. Because you have to know like the best practices. You have to know what works, what doesn't work. Otherwise it can just trip you up and you'll end up like doing work that's not effective and it's going to end your career. And it shouldn't be like something that you just rely on constantly without using your own brain, because that's going to put you into this stage of being super lazy with work in general. And the reason that's bad is because a lot of people that actually start using ChatGPT in this way, where it's just like, okay, prompt, copy and paste, prompt, copy and paste, prompt, copy and paste. You start feeling like you're not doing creative work anymore because you're not. And a lot of people report losing their sense of purpose with their work when it comes to work, not just like in life in general, although it is closely related. But you just start being like, okay, now my work is just copying and pasting from ChatGPT. And you're quite right. Like you're no longer a copywriter. You're just somebody who is copying and pasting stuff. Like you're ChatGPT's assistant, essentially. And then if that gets you to a point where you're unhappy with your job because you don't see any point in it anymore, then that's going to reflect in your work. It's going to reflect in your well-being and everything around that. So I think that the only way to kind of prevent that, and this is what I've seen in like some studies as well, or maybe a podcast, I don't know. And also verify that if, I don't know, don't just trust what I say. But basically, the guy was saying that they did some studies on people who use ChatGPT, and half of those people, or, they found that people who just use it in that way, like copy and paste, prompt, copy and paste, they very quickly start reporting like feeling more depressed and kind of pointless. Whereas people who interact with it like it's their assistant, they kind of treat it like a little human assistant and they see themselves as like the person that's, just, I don't know, interacting and having this kind of work relationship with them, with ChatGPT. They find that, it tickles like the social part of their brains, which then helps them feel like, they're not just interacting with a machine, but they have like a little assistant. It's something about that basically we need that social interaction, or that social, what do you call it? Not motivation. What is that word? I don't know. I forgot. But basically there's a word for it where it's like, like it just switches that social stimulation. That's it. You need like a little bit of social stimulation to make that relationship work with AI. Like that's what they're saying. Basically, that's going to make it better for you. And it's going to make you feel less like you're interacting with with a machine. And then another thing about that is, yeah, you have to not just copy and paste without actually critically thinking about what AI is handing out to you, because that's just going to contribute to that feeling of like, okay, I'm just, this is all pointless. Like it doesn't make sense. So apart from that, I actually met someone last week. Like I went to like this meetup, and there was a guy there who used to be a web developer. And he told me that he ended up quitting his job. He's like, I did it for years and I was paid really well. I had like a 6-figure salary. He lived in the US. And it was like, everything was great. But then when AI came, we were actually encouraged to use it at work all the time, like to speed up the process. And then he said, it stopped being creative. I didn't have to think anymore because, Chat GPT was actually quite good at doing our jobs. So we were just the people like prompting it and stuff. And then he ended up quitting, and he was like, I've decided to become a carpenter. There you go. If that doesn't say anything, then And the way he explained it to me is that, he started feeling that lack of purpose, and he wanted to do something more real, and he felt like changing to something that like AI can't do that, and it involves your hands, and it's very like, very hands-on. And I guess developing like web development felt like that to him before, but then it just started feeling so like numb. And I get that. So, but not all of us want to be carpenters or plumbers or whatever. There's actually an interview on The Diary of a CEO with the godfather of AI, who is one of the people responsible for funding AI. And he kind of said that. He was like, because Steven, the guy who runs the show, he asked him, okay, what would you say to your kids? Like, what kind of jobs should they do? And he was like, I think plumbing or carpentry or, stuff like that. Because AI is going to be bad at that for a long time. And I get like why he's saying that. I do not want to be a plumber though. So my kind of thinking is that, and my advice to people right now, like you can still get into copywriting. There's nothing holding you back. Like I say, learn to use AI to your advantage, not like don't get scared of it and just say, okay, like we're all, doomed. But I also think that it's good to use that free time that you're going to have, because now you can get your work done quicker, to learn complementary skill sets. And I'm going to give you a couple that I can just think of the top of my head. But feel free to like leave any ideas in the comments below, because, or ask about those, because either I or other people will know if the two could work. One that I think will never fail you is email marketing. So if you can learn to like operate Klaviyo or MailChimp, build out emails, build out flows, analyze the data, understand like strategies and promotions and all that kind of stuff, then I think those go hand in hand really well, because you can now offer a service where, you can do the copy, but you can also manage the entire account, which essentially is saving the business from having to hire multiple people to fill multiple positions. But you're coming in and you're saying, hey, I can just take over this whole thing because I can do copy and I can do this and I can, just take care of that. Or even if you don't want to do all of it and there is like an account manager or email marketing manager and you're coming in as the copywriter, you can still offer your expertise and advice, because, in Poland, we have this saying like two pairs of eyeballs are better than one, or two minds are better than one always. So there's nothing wrong with having complementary skills. It's actually gonna be good for you. Another one that I can think of is Facebook ads. So if you learn how to, or TikTok ads, Facebook ads, whatever. If you learn how to use the platform, how like it works, what are the best strategies, etc., the data and whatever, then obviously that with copywriting, they go hand in hand. Because copywriting is not just writing, it's just like, it's also the ideas behind the entire campaigns. It's not like you're just there to write words, you're there to actually come up with concepts and things that you think will be engaging and will hook people and will get them to take action. So it's more than just words. So yeah, Facebook ads, social media marketing or content marketing, for obvious reasons. You can definitely combine the two. SEO. So if people are still, or a lot of businesses are using SEO as their main kind of traffic inducing, traffic generating strategy. So understanding how to do both, because even in like blog posts and stuff, some copywriting is used. User experience design. So that's always going to go hand in hand. I mean, it's closely connected. Website design or website build out, web development, those go hand in hand. Graphic design, definitely. Apps, like building apps, for sure. Account management. So it kind of is like the email marketing thing that I mentioned, but you could, for example, be an account manager. That can be your main thing, but with copywriting skill set to like step in, correct things, give ideas, direct the copywriters, etc. Also creative direction. So creative directors are the people that would look at like the bigger picture of an entire campaign or entire brand. And then if you can come up with like slogans and headlines and whatever, that's always going to be helpful and goes, together with copywriting. So I guess I want to leave you with some practical steps that you can just implement moving forward. I would say that the first thing is learn to use AI. If you've been kind of like, I don't know, like I think most people nowadays do use it to some extent. Like you would use it to research things or to give you answers. Like even a year ago, it's crazy. Like even a year ago, Chat GPT was nowhere near as like common as it is now. Like now even, like your auntie or your whatever mom is using it to like ask questions and stuff or translate things for them or whatever. So it's literally, we're not moving away from it. It's very obvious that we are moving closer and closer to AI, and it's becoming an integral part of our life. Just how like Google search engine, when it first came out, and then it just very quickly became like an everyday thing. Like we would use Google search engines, like, I don't know why I keep saying the whole time. We would use Google like multiple times a day to get all of our questions answered, literally. Now, this is what AI is becoming. And actually, Google has implemented AI assisted searches, which is crazy. And even now, like when you type something into Google, the first thing that comes out is like an AI block. It's like Chat GPT is there like, hey, well, not Chat GPT. I think Google's one is called Gemini. But yeah, it's there like answering your questions. So you definitely want to learn how to use it and understand like the basics of it, how do prompts work, how it operates, how we can make it better, play around with it for research, for writing, for reviewing your work and all that stuff. But number 2 is definitely you still want to master copywriting or whatever skill we're talking about here, because it's never going to replace your knowledge. Like you have to be knowledgeable. Like I said, you are the senior and ChatGPT is your assistant, not the other way around. Don't make yourself a GPT slave, all right? And then 3 is use your free time to learn more skills. Like I said, that's always gonna pay off, and explore, because you never know what you're gonna come across that's gonna be your next thing. I always say that you don't have to be so like single track minded. Like I do so many things in my life. Like I like creating content, so here I am. Like yes, my main job. So like the majority of my time during the day I spend copywriting, because that's what makes me money. That's what gives me my life that I love. I mean, it doesn't give me my life, but you know what I mean? My lifestyle, let's say it this way. So I like that and I want to continue. But at the same time, I do a lot of other things and I try other things and I explore them because you never know. You know, I might come across something that I'm like, you know what, this is it. Like, I know I want to do that. And also when I started, I did copywriting for mainly sales pages and like funnels. But now my main thing is email copywriting, like email marketing, email copywriting, because I love it. Like, I like the dynamics of it. It's quicker. It's, you know, it's fun. It's creative, whatever, like all that stuff. And it doesn't take as many hours doing research and stuff, because if you're working on a single brand over the course of like years, you know, you learn about the brand once, you learn about the products once, you learn about the clients once. I mean, you're always learning, but like the main learning curve comes at the beginning, and then you're just writing emails for that same audience, so you can develop in that way without like having to spend so many hours researching and stuff. And then I would always say, and this is probably the most important thing, is always give yourself as much room to be creative as possible. Do not become that person that becomes a slave to GPT and has zero creativity of their own, because our brains work on neural connections, right? So that's why we're creatures of habit. If I wake up every morning and the first thing I do is reach for my phone, what's going to happen is, you know, this is going to become like a link. Okay, wakes up, first thing, phone. Wakes up, first thing, phone. And then that link gets stronger and stronger the more I do it. And then if I try to quit that behavior, either I have to replace it with something else, or, you know, it's going to take a while to like for that link to grow weaker, but it's never really going to disappear. Like, it's always going to be there. So if I start doing that again, it's like muscle memory, you know, I'll go back to it quicker. And I think this is why, from what I understand about addictions, this is also the way it works, because, you know, some drugs, or most drugs, create very strong hormonal responses like dopamine or whatever. So what happens is, you know, that link gets strong very quickly. And then when you try to get off of a drug, like, it takes a while, and it's most of the times pretty difficult. But then it's like all it takes is for you to do it once, or like find yourself in a position where you would normally do the drug. Like, let's say you're at a party and you used to like always do some kind of a drug at parties. So your brain just understands that connection. And then you go into a party, but you haven't done drugs in ages, but you go into a party and automatically the cues make your brain think, oh, now we're going to do drugs. So it's the same with like Chat GPT. If you're going there and all the time you're going for this very fast and easy and quick way of getting what you need without actually putting in your own creative work and developing ideas and working with it to make your work better, not just easier, then what happens is this is the link that you develop, and it gets very strong, and then it's very difficult to resist it, you know? Like, when you try to think about things and be creative and stuff, your brain's like, how about we don't do that? How about we just copy and paste, and then, you know, it's done, and you can just say, okay, I have the rest of the day free because I already did my work. So I would always say, try to literally develop the link where you're the master of AI and you're not the slave, because that's just not going to be good for you and your brain. And I do believe that in the long term, like, your creativity is just going to, I don't know, that link's not going to be very strong. So practice creativity as much as you can, because at the end of the day, as copywriters, this is what we get paid for. If you made it to the end, please leave me a comment, because I will be very impressed. We're at like 48 minutes. So yeah, that's it. I don't have anything else to say on this topic.